Alright, so we're going to be talking about the parts of an introduction. This is a really important part of our speech because if you don't get your audience to care about your speech during the first couple of minutes, you're probably not going to get them to care about it. There are 5 different parts of an introduction that we're going to be using in this class specifically. If you go online to other sources, you may find other things that they say you need. These are the 5 things that you're going to need for this class. First off, you're going to need to get an attention getter. Your textbook gives you several examples of what an attention getter can be, including things like rhetorical questions, quotations from other people, startling facts, and that type of thing. Basically, think about the attention getter as being a way to make your audience more curious about your topic. So when in doubt, think about telling a story of some kind or trying to get your audience involved in a way that they get interested in what you're going to be talking about for the rest of your speech. So that's how you get your attention getter taken care of. One of the other things you need from your introduction is going to be a credibility statement. Basically, your credibility statement is going to be telling your audience why they should trust you about this topic. And there's 2 different ways that you need to build your credibility. First off, you need to build personal credibility. So you should make your audience trust you as a person. They need to look at you and say, yep, I think that person is trustworthy. I can trust what this person is going to say. In addition to that, you also need to build credibility about your topic. When you're building credibility about your topic, what you're saying is, not only am I somebody that you can trust, you look at me and you say, yep, I can trust this person, but in addition to that, you can trust me about this specific topic. Now, I would hope that you could trust me to teach you about public speaking. If you can't, I'm not sure why you're still taking my class. However, you probably wouldn't trust me to give a talk on how to, for instance, remove someone's appendix. I could say, I watched how to do this once on the Surgery Channel. That makes me credible, right? No, that does not make me a credible person about this topic. So, in terms of your credibility statement, that needs to be something that you establish both personally and about that topic. You can establish credibility in a number of ways, including having a very confident delivery style. That's one of the ways that you can build your credibility. And in addition to that, you can mention things like experience that you've had with your topic or research that you've done about your topic. Those are the types of things that are going to make your audience say, yes, I can trust this person. Another component of your introduction needs to be your relevance statement. Your relevance statement basically is going to say, okay, audience, I'm going to be talking about this, and this is why you should care about this topic. So, for instance, if I'm giving a topic about the movie Zoolander, I need to convince my audience that there's some relevance to them, that there's some way that this topic is going to connect with them. So I might say, Zoolander is a movie that earned itself over $75 billion in the theaters, which isn't true, I just made that up. Obviously, you don't want to make up things in your actual speech because that will hurt your credibility. But I could say this movie made $75 billion. It was the largest grossing film in its first weekend at the theaters ever. This is something that we should all probably know about. And if that's the case, then that's something that our audience might say, okay, yes, I understand, I get this. The tricky thing with the relevance statement is we can't just say something that's going and hope that our audience is going to connect this to themselves. So we need to say, this is a movie that made all of this money, and as a group of people, you as the audience, as a group of people who watch movies and who are impacted by the economic shortcomings or economic advancements or whatever of each movie, you should know about this movie since it was such a high-grossing film. Alright, so you need to specifically connect it to your audience. I'm going to give an example here in a couple of minutes. I hope that'll make more sense. The next thing to think about is the thesis statement, which I'm not going to go into terribly deeply here because I'm going to have a separate video specifically about that. The thesis statement is a huge, huge part of your speech. If you don't get this right, it's not going to make sense, okay? Basically, what you need to accomplish with your thesis statement is you need to tell your audience what you're hoping to accomplish with your speech. All right? It's going to be very simple. There's going to be 3 parts you're going to need to have, and like I said, I'm going to have another video about this to make it more have it make more sense. But the 3 parts you need to have are, today my goal is to inform, to persuade, to entertain, whatever it might be. You need to have your second part be something about the audience, right? So my goal today is to inform you. You would be the second part, talking about the audience. Now the third part is the specific part about your topic. So something like, today my goal is to inform you about the movie Zoolander. Okay? So the three parts then are the to inform, you being the audience, and then the specific topic being about the movie Zoolander. Alright? You'll notice I didn't say, my goal is to inform you about movies. You notice I didn't say, my goal is to talk about movies. Right? That's not what we're trying to do. We're specifically trying to tell our audience, are we trying to inform them, or are we trying to persuade them or entertain them? Remember, those are the three main things we can do with a speech. The last thing we need to do in an introduction is have the preview statement. Now, a preview statement basically says, this is what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of my speech. Right? In English class, you might have heard in a 5-paragraph essay, you need to tell people what you're going to be saying, then you say it, and then you tell them what you said, right? I always hated that in English, but especially when we're doing speeches and we're trying to orally tell things to people, we need to have that type of repetition. Our audience members won't remember what we're saying, okay? So a preview statement is going to be something very simple, all right? If we're going to have a speech about the movie Zoolander, I might say, today my goal is to inform you about the movie Zoolander, period. That's my thesis statement. To do that, I will first talk about the characters in the movie. Second, I will talk about the setting of the movie. And third, I will talk about what happened after the movie, that as a result of what happened. So something like that, right? Very, very simple. I didn't tell you what I'm going to say in those main body points, right? I only gave you a little brief introduction as to what you can expect. Okay, think of a preview statement as giving your audience a roadmap. You're going to say, I'm going to take a left here, I'm going to take a right here, I'm going to take a left here, right? Walks them through what you're going to be doing. Okay, so it's very, very simple, and it should be very boring. Remember, that's what it said in the textbook. So, for example, I'm going to give an example of a preview, or of an introduction that you could use for an informative speech. Okay? And you'll notice on the side here that I've labeled the different parts of what I'm doing, the attention getter, credibility, relevance, and then you'll notice as I scroll down, you'll see my thesis and my preview statements, okay? So you can watch that as I am giving this introduction. Every weekend, you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. or before that on Saturday and Sunday. You're going to be wearing a full formal dress suit. If you're a female, you're going to wear high heels, and you're going to deliver somewhere between 4 and 36 presentations. Does that sound like fun? Well, for some people it is. Some people it's not. For me it was. In college, I competed for 2 years on the collegiate speech team, or the forensics team is what it was called. So every weekend I would get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. depending on how early our tournaments were. I would get all dressed up in formal suit and all that, and I'd deliver, like I said, somewhere between 4 and 36 presentations. Now I learned an awful lot doing that. And in forensics, there is a lot of lessons that we can learn. Both through those 2 years that I competed, as well as for coaching for 2 years and judging for almost 8 years, I've learned an awful lot about what it's like to be a member of the forensics community. And there really are a lot of benefits to being a part of this community. Things like when you're part of forensics, you build your communication skills, your confidence, and your professionalism, all of which are important things for people like us who are trying to get jobs here in the near future. In addition to that, famous people like Oprah and Adam Sandler have both competed in forensics. And there are a number of other people who are famous who've competed in forensics. So there is some kind of a connection sometimes between competing in forensics and being able to reach high levels of excellence in your field. So as college students who are building our resumes, this is something we should care about. We should care about learning about this community and the opportunities that it has for us. So today, my goal is to inform you about the collegiate competitive speaking community that is forensics. To do that, I will first tell you about the events that you can choose from. Second, talk about the competitions that you compete in. And third, talk about the national tournaments. All right, so that was an example of what you might see for an introduction for a speech. Fairly short, right? That wasn't more than a couple of, maybe 32 minutes long, something like that. You'll notice that what I have listed in here under attention getter is somewhat similar to what I said. It's got some notes, kind of a bullet pointed thing, sort of, but it's still, it was still something that I covered in my introduction, right? You'll also notice that the 5 things that I had to have in my introduction were not the only 5 sentences I said. So it's important when you're actually giving an introduction to make sure that you're helping the different parts of your introduction flow together, okay? One last thing to know about, or two more things to note about an introduction. Make sure that your thesis statement and your preview statement are 2 separate statements. Too often I see students connecting their thesis and preview statements. Today my goal is to inform you about the collegiate competitive speaking community by talking about da-da-da-da-da-da-da. No, these should be 2 separate statements. Your thesis statement should tell us specifically in 1 sentence what your goal is with the speech. And then your preview statement will tell us more specifically what you're going to be telling us about or how you're going to go about informing us or persuading us about this topic, okay? Last thing you should know about introductions is that there are only 2 parts of an introduction that have to be in a certain location. And that's going to be your attention getter and your preview statement, okay? Your attention getter always has to go first, all right? Obviously that makes sense. If you start telling us your thesis statement or why you're a credible source or those types of things before you get your audience's attention, that doesn't make any sense. You need to get their attention to have that focusing on you. And again, see the book for some different attention getters that work. The last part of your introduction that always should be last should be your preview statement, all right? Again, it doesn't make sense to have your preview statement before the end of your introduction. Until you've gotten our attention, established why you're a credible source, established why we should even care about your topic, and told us specifically what your goal is, why do we care what the rest of your speech is about? It doesn't make sense, right? So first you need to start with that attention getter, and you need to end with that preview statement, but these middle parts can really go in whatever order is going to help you have the best flow for your speech. So hopefully between this lecture and my example and the readings in the textbook, you have a better idea of what I'm hoping for from your introductions.